Hi, my name is Brance Barnett, and I'm with the Ouachita County Senior 4-H. Today we will be experimenting on a leather coaster and making a keychain. So, primarily in my leather shop, I use 3 different types of leather: chrome tan, oil tan, and veg tan. Chrome tan uses a chemical bath that they coat the leather in, and it doesn't absorb water, which makes it good for upholstery leather for like car seats. Oil tan uses an oil instead of a chemical bath to tan the leather, and it deflects oil sort of well, not as well as the chrome tan, but after it dries, it permanently discolors the oil tan. Veg tan is different though. It soaks up the water and makes it more pliable and malleable so that we can stamp it. So I have a few different stamps here. Most of these are what's called basket weave stamps. This is a 3-prong basket weave that is used like this. This is the basket weave that I primarily use. There are many other types of leather stamps. For example, this is called a 3D stamp. The reason it's called a 3D stamp is because it stamps out the leather and makes the design pop out like it's coming at you. This rope one is what's known as a border. It's for going around the edge when you're done stamping. This is also a border, but it's a different kind. This other stamp that I have is called a maker's mark. It is what I use to mark the leather so people know that I made it. Other tools you'll need for leather work are a hammer. These are rawhide mallets. I have a smaller, lighter one that I use for small detail work. And this big, heavier one is what I use for my stamping. So here is our practice piece. And as you might guess, there are many different ways to finish the edges. The reason you want to finish the edges is because after a lot of time, the leather starts to split at the edge, especially on round pieces. So things we can do to prevent that from happening are lacing the edge with decorative stitching and burnishing the edge with an edge burnisher. This edge burnishing tool has a lot of different sized grooves to accommodate multiple sizes of leather. You just have to experiment around to find out which size groove fits best. For this one, the second groove fits the best. You can't see any light from the other side, and it's not pinching the leather. So the way we burnish the edges on a piece of leather is you want to make sure you get the edges wet, which you can use the water from spraying down your leather to stamp. Then you take your burnisher and you just pull back and forth across the edge of the leather. And as you can see, it sort of rolls over the edge and it makes it to where the leather won't split. Another thing you can do to finish the edge is lacing. Lacing your leather requires you to put holes in it. So you're going to need a hole punch as well. Here I have a cutting board to protect my punch so it will last longer. So for the punch, I prefer to use my lighter hammer. That way I don't go into the cutting board very far. And you can see when the hole punch goes through the leather. So once we have a few holes in our leather, preferably you can go all the way around your piece. This is a chrome tanned kangaroo lace. After a couple stitches, you can start to see the stitching take shape. There are many different types of stitches. For example, what I've started here is what's called a whip stitch. And this one on this side is called a Mexican double loop stitch. To make our keychain, we will be making an Oklahoma shape. And for our keychain, I am thinking that we can use a couple of our border stamps and our largest basket weave stamp. And when you're wetting the leather, remember to get the back twice as wet as the front. In Oklahoma, that's been stamped a couple times with our basket weave stamp. Now to finish it, we can burnish the edges. So once we have all of our edges burnished, we can set it aside to dry. So when it's dry, we can then go to put our finish on. So a finish seals up the leather so that no moisture can get into it and make it crack or split. So I have a couple different types of finishes here. And the first decision you have to make is if you want to put a finish on it. So this antique finish makes the leather darker where you stamped it. So you can take a piece of sheepskin, which is what I have here, and dip it into your dye. And then you want to rub it on. Preferably before you lace it. That way the dye doesn't dye the leather, the lace leather. You can control the amount of dye you put on, and it makes it either darker or lighter depending on how much dye you put. You can see it makes the stamping pop because the dye gets into the deep grooves and you rub it off of the higher spots. So after we've had this dye dry, it doesn't take very long, only a few seconds, but you do want to make sure that it is dry. You have a couple choices as far as sealing the leather. This is mink oil, which is a common leather finish. This is neat's foot oil, also a common leather finish. And this is saddle soap, which is what saddle shops and car upholstery refurbishers use to clean the leather. So to use your saddle soap, you use it like any other soap. You can bring your water back, spray some into the soap, and then use a piece of clean sheepskin or a paper towel if you would prefer. You want to make sure you get enough on there. Then you can scrub it in. Make sure you keep a piece of your sheepskin dry so you can wipe the excess off. And once this dries, it will seal the leather in, and it cleans it too. So you can see that I left a spot blank. That is so we can test our neat's foot oil. So I just have a regular paintbrush here. And you want to make sure you get a nice, thin, even coat. And you can wipe off the excess with a paper towel. You can see it shiny. As soon as it dries and soaks into the leather, it will become a matte finish like this. And another finish that we have here is our mink oil. So for that, we can use a dry, clean paper towel, wipe some up, comes up in globs like this. Then we can just rub it over our design. And this will protect the stamping as well as the leather. So our last step in our keychain is to put the actual keychain on. So for this, I have a pair of jeweler's pliers and a key ring. So you can use your jeweler's pliers to open the key ring and thread it through the hole. Then all you do is twist it on, and you have your very own Oklahoma shaped keychain.